What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Christian Hanna Horror here. I've got the mega panel today for 1990. We got one of my good friends. We used to be in a band together, Tommy McDaniel. Tommy, welcome to the Horror Room. Thank you for being here. And as always, the local horror fan. We're gonna get a T-shirt that says "Local Horror Fan" for you, and we'll sell them. We'll probably sell at least 1,000, right?
Link in bio.
So here we go. Like 1990, we were just talking. 88 was tough as hell. And we thought the worst was over, but 90. Tommy, how tough was 90? Picking 5 for 90.
It was pretty tough. It was tougher than I thought. You think of the 90s and you think, okay, that's the time when horror is kind of, you don't have as many, but no, it's definitely.
It's like just because we're in the 90s, like Scream isn't even anywhere on the radar yet. We're still in like the golden era more or less, right? So 90 was gonna be tough. Tommy, since you're the new guest here, let's start with you. What is your number 5 for 1990?
My number 5, based on the movie alone, it might not have made it on my list, but that's the movie Frankenhooker. And the reason it made it on my list, I love the movie, but the VHS tape is what really sealed it for me. I don't know if y'all know about the VHS tape, but it had a button on it that you could press, and it would say the famous "Want a Date" line. And so I remember seeing that as a kid and always wanting to rent the movie, but, hey, I'm 10. Mom, will you rent me Frankenhooker?
So on the cassette case, it had a button that you could press, and it would...
And which, the ones in the store only worked for maybe a few weeks because everybody would press it. But, yeah, it's because of that. And then I didn't see the movie till maybe 15 years later, but it's one I love, the director of Basket Case.
Oh, really?
Right. So he does, he has a way of, his movies are sleazy, but in a good way, almost like Trauma or something like that. But yeah, that's my number 5.
Excellent. So we coming in with a little B grade with Tommy on number 5. Caitlin, let's go ahead. What's your number 5?
I think a lot of people would put this higher on their list, but I'm going with Child's Play 2.
Whoa! Coming in at number 5 with Child's Play 2. Yeah. There's the Chucky cult going crazy right now.
They're like, you should have put it number 1.
but Child's Play 2 obviously is still a fantastic film.
So good.
Because, like I said, 90 was a tough year.
And we talked about this in the 80s, that there was just some years that there's so many good movies that to pick a top 5, you're really having to go through. And, there's going to be movies that are great that aren't going to be in the top 5. A top 10 maybe, but a top 5, you really got to think about it.
Oh, absolutely. All right, so let's start with me. Here's a movie that, from the research I did, this movie was released like December 29th in like Zimbabwe or somewhere, or wherever it was. But it came in America in 90, and that is Bride of Reanimator.
Oh yeah.
It's my favorite of the movies. I think there was Reanimator, Bride of Reanimator, and I think Beyond Reanimator, which came out like in the early 2000s. Right. I just love Bride. Whether it's just the atmosphere of the movie or just the whole plot of them trying to reanimate the woman again, kind of like the Bride of Frankenstein thing. It just
and Jeffrey Combs.
Absolutely. I think. Yeah, there was some great stuff in there, and some of the stop motion with the little hand eye with the eyeball, stuff like that. That's like some of my favorite moments in the franchise. And you got the returning characters of Jeffrey Combs' character, and then his buddy, that doctor, who's always trying to be like the guy who's like, hold on, let's think about this reasonably. But Jeffrey Combs or Herbert West is always dragging him into insanity. So I just love Bride of Reanimator. I thought it was a good follow up to the classic. Great movie, Reanimator.
Such great movies.
So, and it makes number 5 on my list. So there it is. So Tommy, let's go to number 4.
Okay, this is the one where people might be like, "What?" But this is a movie that scared me as a kid, and I always feel it's a great movie, and that is the adaptation of the book, The Witches.
Oh yeah.
And the part that got me, that made me say, "Okay, this is horror," was the part where they finally take their mask off. When they're in the banquet room, and Angelica Houston, who's like the head witch, comes in and she takes her mask off, and you see what they really look like. The cinematography in that scene is really awesome because it makes me think of like Sam Raimi or Peter Jackson in his early work. It has that kind of feel to it, but I just think it's a great movie. I used to read the book over and over again as a kid, and it's one of my favorite movies, period. But that's The Witches, number 4.
The Witches coming in with some.
I got that on VHS.
Excellent.
Awesome.
Kaylin, go ahead. What's your number 4?
My number 4 is going to be Tales from the Dark Side.
The movie.
The movie, another anthology.
Is it because of Steve Buscemi? It
It had a lot to do with Buscemi.
is that how you pronounce? Is that how you pronounce it?
I think it's Buscemi.
But I'll call him
Buscemi.
Buscemi from
I
now
like
on.
that. I think that's
Dude,
better.
Tales from the Dark Side is awesome, man, and that's what they call the real Creepshow 3, right? With George Romero, because George Romero wrote it, right? Yeah, man, that's a great one.
And that's one that I've always loved. I can pop it in on a Saturday and just do some chores and have it in the background.
Right.
Yeah, that's the perfect way to put that kind of movie. So excellent. Let's see. For me, I put Texas Chainsaw 3 as my number 4, and is it the greatest of the franchise? Absolutely not. But I don't know what it is about 3. It almost feels like a Rob Zombie film before Rob Zombie was doing films.
Yeah,
it
I
has
can
that
see
kind
that.
of feel to it, and maybe it's the Ken Foree. But
Right,
Ken
yeah.
Foree just has some kind of just a vibe on screen that I really like. And the simple atmosphere,
Right.
very simple atmosphere with that little gas station. So you're a fan of Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3,
Oh,
then,
yeah,
Tommy?
yeah, and it didn't make my list, but it almost did. And the cast is I didn't realize that the guy from Night of the Living Dead '90, who's like the nephew of the guy who owns the house who's killed. I can't remember his name. It's the character's name, but he's in.
He's in Texas Chainsaw Massacre
That's,
3.
I think the only thing I've ever seen him
Yeah.
in besides Night of the Living Dead '90.
He also was one of the victims. I forget his name. Nobody who remembers that guy's name anyway. He's just
Put
the
it in
guy.
the comments.
He was in Friday the 13th, The New Blood. He got killed by
really?
Kane Hodder. Yeah, but you don't. He's the guy they're going to his surprise party, and he
Okay.
breaks down. He's like, I gotta go take a piss real quick, and Jason gets him. But yeah, I'll keep it short. Look, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3, it hits me in the right places, so it made my list. So
Awesome.
It's a good
Yeah.
one.
So where are we at, number 3
Yes.
now?
Number
Go ahead,
3.
Tommy. What's
My
your
number 3 is Child's Play 2. It's one that I think the first one's better, but this is the one I've seen the most. So that's why it's on my list. It's one of those movies. It was the first Child's Play that I actually saw, and I rented on my own. And so because of that, it kind of sticks with me for nostalgic reasons. But I think it's a great movie. It's a great sequel to, in a great franchise. And that's my number 3.
Absolutely, and it's fun. I think part 2 is. I've seen a lot of rankings, and even my rank. Part 2 seems to be the fan favorite.
Yeah.
Like it's
Yeah,
crazy
it's-
how Universal just had the right sensibility and the
Right.
right way to take that franchise to the next level.
And how many times can you say a sequel is better or on par with the original?
It's
in any
very very
series?
seldom. So, Kaylin, let's go. What's your number 3?
Number 3 is going to be probably one of my favorite movies ever, and that's Nightbreed.
Ooh, Clive Barker.
Clive Barker.
Absolutely, that's a
And-
fantastic one.
And great characters. Just a all around great scary movie. Nightbreed.
Yeah, and it's funny. I saw the movie years ago, and I completely forgot about it. But I was surprised at how different the director's cut was. Man, there was so
Yeah.
much extra stuff in there.
Huge difference, yeah.
So
I need to see that one.
yeah, absolutely. Quite honestly, I think I prefer the old school cut because it's not as scary the new cut because they have a lot of stuff. And I don't know if the studio was like, hey Clive, let's take the poetry out of this so much
yeah.
and make it more of a horror movie. But yeah, for me, number 3, I think one of y'all have said this already, maybe not. I'm putting Night of the Living Dead, 1990. Strange situation where I so respect to one of the greatest horror movies, the 68?
Yeah.
Night of the Living Dead, but it may just be in that golden era is the reason I like it more. But first off, Tony Todd knocks it out the park in that movie. And as far as makeup prosthetics go, I think this was the pinnacle. 1990 with Savini. I don't know if Savini. I know he directed the movie. I don't know if he did the makeup, but he was
I believe
obviously
he did.
there.
I believe he
So
did,
if he didn't, he would at least supervise it. But yeah.
Right.
Just fabulous stuff. But the practicality in that movie still is great. When Bill Moseley in the beginning, he gets his head pushed in that tombstone, clearly a dummy, but it still looks.
Right,
You
yeah.
still. There's an impact to that you wouldn't get from CGI. Am I right,
No,
Tommy?
absolutely, 100%.
Yeah. So Kaylin, I know you love. This was the movie we bonded over. Obviously, was Night of the Living Dead, 1990.
Sure
So
did.
I'll leave it at that. But here we go. We're getting to the nitty gritty, Tommy.
Top 2.
All right,
Top
number
two.
2 is the television miniseries It.
Here we go.
It's just a great scary movie. If you watch it now, some of the acting is a bit cheesy, but it's still just one of the scariest thing I've ever seen. I was literally scared of this and had to call my parents to come pick me up from my friend's house after watching it when I was a kid. So, but it's a great movie, a great cast, and I love the newest version, but Tim Curry as Pennywise is, I mean, it just can't be duplicated. And I'm glad they didn't even really try to do that. So, yeah, it's just a great movie.
And let me ask you this, Tommy, because I basically had the same story as you. I think we all kind of do. Are you like me? I'm not scared of clowns, but I am scared of Tim Curry.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? And that speaks volumes to his performance in that movie.
Absolutely.
So, all right, Caitlin.
Number 2 is it for me as well, and I don't think there's anything I can add to that Tommy didn't say. Great movie.
Dang. Well, now I feel weird because you guys have already said this movie, but I've got this movie at my number 2, and no pun intended, but Child's Play 2. And, one reason I put this movie really high is I think the greatest scene of the entire franchise was in part 2. If I die and go to hell, which I probably am, hell would be that doll factory in part 2 because that doll factory is the thing of nightmares. The conveyor belts and then the dolls just haunting stuff.
Right.
That's the scene that comes to mind every time I think of Child's Play 2.
Oh, Lord. And then, and I think the same. It's interesting. I don't know if I didn't see the original as much growing up because it was from MGM, who hated the series after the backlash they got and kind of kept it hidden, and Universal really pushed that movie out. But 2 was my Child's Play.
Yeah.
If anything, I probably saw it first, but man, I can remember being at my grandma's in that scene when they're in that doll factory. That is hell. I mean, that is hell to me. So
it gave me some nightmares as a kid.
Before we get to number 1, just typical, let's do some honorable mentions. I don't another classy movie extravaganza. We got a movie like Tremors,
Which almost made my list.
Yeah.
But yeah, one of my most favorite movies. I just didn't know if it fit the horror. But yeah.
A couple more, and once again, I'm assuming this isn't on your list. If it is, I'll edit this out. Graveyard Shift, another good Stephen King.
Oh, yeah.
And a movie called Basket Case 2, which came out in 90, which is great. So, here it is, guys. The moment you've all been waiting for, the number 1. We're going to go with Tommy. Go ahead with your number 1 of 1990.
My number 1 is Night of the Living Dead, 1990. All the things that everybody's already said, but also the cast. He's talked about Tony Todd, Bill Moseley, Tom Tolles, who was in Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer. I can't remember the woman who plays Barbara, but she was actually in Army of Darkness as the witch.
That's right. Yeah. She's a really good.
Was she a
stunt woman?
Yeah.
She's a stunt woman too, which is badass.
But a great. That's the quintessential zombie movie. And the thing that I think it did over the original was the character development, especially Barbara's character. She was like a totally different person. She wasn't just kind of a meek, woman who just sat and was scared to death and paralyzed. She, took action and, but that's, if somebody wants to know what is a zombie movie, you show them that. And,
I couldn't agree more. I could not agree more. Kaylin?
It's my number 1 as well.
Wow. I got 2? Yeah. Okay, guys, I don't need to look at my list again for my number 1. And none of y'all have mentioned this movie, and this is a movie that I cannot watch it by myself if I'm in the house alone. Funnily enough, it has Brad Dourif in it. That is Exorcist 3. This movie, it hits me in somewhere in my body to where when there's scenes happen where the detective gets in that cell with Brad Dourif, I gotta lean back every time I watch it because he is so, in my opinion, in the 90s, one of the best horror performance was Brad Dourif as, more or less, who was he? Satan or whatever kind of demon he was. That performance, and then the story of that movie does not meet you halfway at all. It's my favorite horror movies of the 90s. Period. So maybe somebody can agree with me on that, but
it's
obviously
one of those where it's almost too scary to have been on my list, if that makes sense. Where I almost don't enjoy it because it just freaked me out so much.
Yeah, it's one of Jeffrey Dahmer's favorite movies.
Wow,
really?
Yeah.
I'm going to hell for sure. But man, what a year! And the early '90s. I was looking through. There's still we still got so many great classic movies to come up. So
from like '90 till The Scream, that's kind of my favorite era because that's when I was a teenager.
Yeah. Right.
And a lot of people look at that as not the greatest era for horror movies, but there's a lot of really great stuff that just people don't think about.
And I think, in the future, because I'd love to have, obviously, Kaylin, you becoming a regular, like Tommy, I'd love for you to be back for this series. I think we're going to start to see a lot of movies we're really getting into, you know, the home video era. So we're going to have a lot of movies hit these lists that may not have even been to theaters.
Yeah.
Which is really going to be interesting. So
it's going to get more difficult.
It's going to get more difficult. And quite frankly, I probably need to do some homework and you know, rewatch some of these movies. So but 90, this was incredible. What a fun list.
Year for
and
sure.
I know 91's going to be tough too, but 90 could have been the hardest year to tackle in the 90s. We'll see. We say that, but all of a sudden we look at the list and we say, oh, I forgot about this movie.
Yeah.
So, Tommy, I want to thank you for being here again. Kaylin, as always, the local horror fan. We hope you guys enjoyed this list. Please drop your list below. That's why we do this, to connect with you guys and see where your brainwaves are at. But until next time,